In the early Middle Ages, Sweden was not a single kingdom, but a land divided between two powerful tribes, the Swedes in the north and the Geats in the south. The Swedes, centered around Uppsala, traced their roots to the Viking Age and held on to ancient traditions. The Geats, in Götaland, were equally proud and independent, with their own laws and leaders. These two groups saw themselves as rivals, not brothers, and uniting them was a daunting challenge. Geography, dense forests and vast lakes, kept them apart, making travel and communication difficult. Their legal systems differed, with each region following its own ancient laws, complicating any attempt at unity. Powerful nobles in both territories fiercely guarded their independence, resisting any distant king's authority. Kings who tried to rule both tribes often faced rebellion or assassination. The struggle to unite Swedes and Geats defined early Swedish history, fueling centuries of conflict and instability. Some kings tried to bridge the gap through marriage or war, but many failed. The story of Sweden's unification is a tale of proud Swedes and stubborn Geats, each unwilling to bow to the other. For generations, the kingdom's fate depended on a ruler's ability to command loyalty from both peoples. The division was the central problem of early Swedish history. It was a constant source of conflict and instability. The long and bloody road to a united Sweden began here, in this fractured land. Only through struggle and compromise would these two nations become one. The foundation of Sweden was laid in the tension between unity and independence. In medieval Sweden, kings were elected, not simply born to rule. Powerful nobles gathered at the Mora stones to choose the next king, giving them immense influence over the throne. This elective monarchy meant every succession brought uncertainty and often civil war. Rival factions could support different candidates, sometimes resulting in two rival kings. To be accepted, a new king had to travel the provinces on the Eriksgata, seeking approval from local assemblies. Failing to respect local customs could be fatal. King Ragnvald Knapovd was killed for neglecting to take hostages from the Geats. Swedish kings were weak, constantly bargaining with nobles for support. Real power often lay with the kingmakers, the wealthy families who could make or break a monarch. This system fueled endless cycles of violence and instability. The balance of power between king and nobles defined Swedish politics for centuries. The struggle for the throne was as much about negotiation as it was about blood. The 12th century saw Sweden torn by civil war between two dynasties, the House of Sverker and the House of Erik. The crown passed violently between them for over 60 years, with kings rising and falling through assassination and revenge. Sverker the Elder, a Geatish landowner, briefly united the kingdom but was murdered, plunging Sweden back into chaos. Erik the Saint, his rival, became king and a symbol of Christian piety, but he too was killed by enemies allied with the Sverkers. Each murder deepened the blood feud, turning the struggle for the throne into a cycle of vengeance. After Erik's death, Sverker's son Charles took the throne, only to be killed by Erik's son Canute. The crown became a deadly prize, passed from one bloodstained hand to another. Every assassination created new generations sworn to avenge their kin. The conflict was no longer just about power, it was a war of families and faith. The endless feud between Sverker and Erik shaped Sweden's destiny for decades. The kingdom's future hung in the balance, determined by violence and loyalty. The struggle would only end when one house finally triumphed. Until then, Sweden remained a land divided by blood. Erik IX, or Erik the Saint, was a king remembered for his faith and his fateful crusade. Amidst the civil war, he led the first Swedish crusade to Finland, seeking to convert the pagan Finns and expand Swedish influence. Legend claims he saw a golden cross in the sky, inspiring the Swedish flag, though this story is likely myth. Erik's reign was short. He was killed by Magnus Henriksson, a Danish prince allied with the Sverkers, as he left church in Uppsala. His brutal death shocked the kingdom, but miracles were soon reported at the site where he fell. Erik was venerated as a martyr and became the patron saint of Stockholm. His sainthood gave the House of Erik a powerful symbol in their struggle against the Sverkers. The Crusade to Finland marked the start of Swedish expansion eastward. Erik's legacy endured, shaping both the kingdom's faith and its national identity. In death, he became a rallying point for his supporters. The legend of Erik the Saint outlived the man himself. His story became central to Sweden's medieval mythos. After Erik the Saint's murder, his son Canute I avenged him, defeating the Sverkers and ruling Sweden for nearly 30 years. Canute's reign brought rare stability, allowing trade to flourish and the first Swedish coins in centuries to be minted. He was a pragmatic ruler, focused on building a stronger, more organized kingdom. But disaster struck in 1187 when Sigtuna, Sweden's most important town, was attacked and burned by raiders from across the Baltic. The raid was a national trauma. The Archbishop of Uppsala was killed, and the kingdom's vulnerability was exposed. For years it was believed the attackers were from Novgorod, but modern research suggests otherwise. The famous bronze church doors in Novgorod were not taken from Sigtuna, and archaeological evidence of destruction is scant. The raid's true scale may have been exaggerated, but its impact on Swedish memory was profound. Canute's long reign showed the possibility of peace, but also the kingdom's fragility. The Sigtuna raid became a symbol of Sweden's need for unity and defense. Canute's legacy was a stronger, more resilient kingdom. Yet, the threat from abroad remained ever present. The memory of Sigtuna's fall haunted Sweden for generations. Canute's rule marked a turning point in Swedish statehood. The kingdom would never be the same. After Canute's death, the nobles chose Sverker the Younger as king, hoping to heal old wounds. But Canute's sons, led by Erik, refused to accept defeat and returned from exile with Norwegian allies. In 1208, Erik's outnumbered forces defeated Sverker's army at the Battle of Lena, a stunning victory. Sverker fled, but returned 2 years later with Danish support, only to be killed at the decisive Battle of Gestilren. These battles ended the long civil war between the houses of Erik and Sverker. The house of Sverker's power was broken, and the house of Erik finally triumphed. The cost was high. Key allies like Folke Jarl of the Bjelbo family died in the fighting. The end of the dynastic feud marked a turning point in Swedish history. The kingdom could now move towards stability and unity. The rise of new powers, like the Bjelbo family, signaled a shift in Swedish politics. The era of endless civil war was drawing to a close. The battles of Lena and Gestilren became legendary in Swedish memory. The House of Erik's victory paved the way for a new era. But the scars of conflict would shape Sweden for generations. A new power was about to emerge. With the old royal houses fading, a new leader emerged, Birger Jarl. Though never king, Birger Jarl wielded more power than any monarch before him. He married into the royal family and became the true ruler behind the throne. When the last Erik king died without an heir, Birger moved quickly to have his son Valdemar elected king, founding the House of Bjelbo. Birger Jarl transformed Sweden. He founded Stockholm in 1252, seeing its strategic value for trade and defense. He enacted the laws of household peace, protecting homes, churches, and women, bringing order to a violent society. Birger expanded Swedish rule into Finland, leading the Second Crusade and establishing firm control over the region. He centralized power, established a new dynasty, and laid the foundations for a unified kingdom. Birger Jarl was the architect of the medieval Swedish state. His reforms brought peace and stability after centuries of chaos. When he died in 1266, Sweden was stronger and more organized than ever. His legacy shaped the nation for generations. After Birger Jarl's death, his sons fought for power, plunging Sweden into civil war once more. Magnus, with Danish support, defeated his brother Valdemar and became King Magnus III, known as Ladulås, Barnlock. Magnus earned his nickname by outlawing the practice of nobles taking food from peasants without payment, protecting the common people. He reformed the kingdom, creating a new class of nobility loyal to the crown and reducing the power of unruly noble families. Magnus worked to unify Sweden's laws, breaking down old divisions between Swedes and Geats. He centralized government and strengthened royal authority, continuing his father's legacy. Magnus Ladulås was a stern but just ruler, focused on the well-being of all his subjects. His reforms brought peace and security to the realm. When he died in 1290, Sweden was more unified and stable than ever before. Magnus had truly locked the barns, securing the foundations of the Swedish nation. His reign marked the end of an era of chaos. The kingdom was finally on the path to lasting unity. Sweden's journey from a land of rival tribes to a unified kingdom was forged in conflict and compromise. The struggle between Swedes and Geats created a need for strong leadership and shared identity. The elective monarchy, though chaotic, prevented any one family from seizing absolute power too soon. Endless dynastic wars eventually burned themselves out, paving the way for new leadership. Birger Jarl and Magnus Ladulås built the institutions that made Sweden a true state, founding Stockholm, reforming laws, and centralizing authority. By the end of the 13th century, old tribal identities faded, replaced by a new Swedish identity. The kingdom now had a capital, a code of laws, and a government that could enforce its will. The cycle of violence gave way to stability and hereditary monarchy. Through centuries of struggle, Sweden was forged into a nation. The scattered tribes of the north became the Kingdom of Sweden. The foundation for a unified nation was finally secure.